Hello, on behalf of the Highland Park Public Library, welcome. We're so pleased you could join us for this preview of the design of the library's expansion project. I'm Library Executive Director Heidi Smith. I'd like to go over a bit of our project background with you today. The library completed a comprehensive facility needs assessment several years ago with public input, and then as a result, completed an interior renovation in 2020, which addressed some of the needs identified. In 2021, the library board completed a strategic plan with community input that prioritized the remaining needs. We've planned a 2025 to 2026 expansion project to meet the demand for space and services. Here is a list of the 8 priorities that the library board and staff identified through the 2021 strategic plan survey process. They include an ADA compliant elevator to assess whether or not the library needs additional parking, a larger youth services department, medium-sized meeting room spaces, and expanded and improved archive space. The library also hopes to add a new maker space and is reviewing the usage of its digital media lab to meet demand. I'm pleased to introduce Darren Schroeder, Principal, and Scott Delano, Design Principal of Studio GC.
Hello.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Excellent. We would like to take you through a little bit of where we are in the project currently and get a little bit of a sense of how we got here and what a wonderful experience it was working with the team that's helped us get to this point. So the existing lower level, as many of you are aware, the parking is what's over here to the right, so that you come down the ramp to the parking below into the vestibule on the lower level. On this lower level, we have the meeting room that's split, and some bathrooms, and many of the spaces that are for staff use. On the main level, oh, interesting. So here we can see a blow up of that, where you can see entry vestibule, parking, staff spaces, meeting rooms, and a good bit of mechanical and other building support. As we look to reuse that space and reconfigure it, one of the things that came out, which was very exciting in the conversation, was that we wanted to make sure that the maker space was a large, flexible space that was available for patrons to use and could be easily found in the space. And frequently these types of spaces wind up being more used if people are aware of it. And so many of the folks coming in from that lower level will be passing by the new entry to the maker space. Patron spaces on this lower level are this lobby, the restrooms, and that maker space. The remainder of the floor has been reused for staff spaces, being able to expand the need for staff spaces in spaces that are not going to take away from the patron experience. And that was important to make sure that the patron experience is what drives how we are doing these reconfigurations. And so on this level, the primary thing is that makerspace, and you can see the new ADA elevator, which was one of the drivers for the project. And this will go through all 3 floors of the library. This was the existing main level. And here you can see, this is the new elevator right here. So this is where it exits out onto with a revised stair. So there's a new arrival experience from the lower level to the main level. The service point stays where it is with great visibility to the front doors, great visibility to that elevator and stair. So anybody coming in from the 2 existing entries can easily see where to find the service point. Additionally, the addition, which is essentially this green area and the lower blue area, is a new building and reconfiguration of spaces of the existing youth services. We've been able to place that service point so there's incredibly powerful visibility to all 3 of the potential entries. That means anyone coming to the building from the entries which are for typical use from the lower level and from Laurel, as well as the new entry that is dedicated usually to that large meeting room, will see as soon as they come in a service point person who can help them find what they need when they enter the library. You can see here reconfiguration of youth, which has expanded the youth services area by taking over where they currently reside and moving into that expansion. Now, the key here was that we looked at this in multiple locations, but what the team felt was most powerful about the youth connection to the site was looking into the garden here. And so now you can see that this youth services area wraps around and has some beautiful views into the garden. So that way we're getting daylight and views into all of those spaces and expanding all the way out to the St. John's Avenue edge. Excuse me. And then you can see the new meeting room, which can be subdivided into 2 rooms, both of which are really nicely outfitted. They'll have everything that you need to run the types of meetings that we've been talking about, including kitchenette to help service that, an expanded teen area, and an area here at the front, which is currently being used as the teen area. We're reusing this space as an asset that can work both for teens after school, but also be an appropriate location for many of the people who come in to utilize the library during the workday. And so this is a really nice sort of flexible space. It's a beautiful room that exists, and now we're going to have uses that are complementary occupied. And we'll have a marketplace that's immediately off of the entry at the service point. You can see that we're showing very little change to the staff areas in the existing library here, and just updating the youth services staff areas to help support the expanded youth services. And here's a blow up of that area where you can see the existing spaces are being reallocated so that we now have new materials. And then discovery room has moved to the end to take advantage of views towards St. John and towards the cabin, student cabin. And then the activity room is moved into what is currently discovery room. So we have regular access, ready access to all of these. And additionally, the service point for youth services for children can now see all of those different activities, as well as provide some monitoring of the teen area when that's in use.
A few items I'd like to point out, Scott, if I had a moment, I'd like to take this opportunity. One, in regards to the new entry sequence and vertical circulation between the lower level and the main level, we've taken this opportunity to change that experience, not only via the elevator, but also the stair. That stair that currently exists, which has open risers, would actually be expanded so it is more comfortable for the traffic going up and down in both directions. And we would be closing those risers to make that experience safer for anyone that needs to traverse it. Secondarily, we also have expanded your toilet room opportunities on this floor by providing multi-user toilets that are going to be in close proximity to the meeting room or the large program room to be able to serve those large audiences, as well as expanding the 2 existing toilet rooms that are in the children's area into fully accessible larger family toilet rooms, which can be used by anyone that needs to find that single user experience. All right, Scott, you can continue.
So then many patrons may not be aware that there is a 3rd floor to the library. And on that 3rd floor, there is a lovely room that is at the top of the stairs next to the mechanical room. And this is useful space that we've had a lot of different studies about what the best use of that space is. And so what we're looking at now is making this the archives. Now the elevator gets you up to this level, so patrons can access the level now. This is the archive room passage, and then there would be the office to support that archive room. And so this is a really lovely space because the room itself is actually a beautiful part of the story, and the archives being housed in the room that itself has a story really is a beautiful tie-in there. And so we felt like that was a good use of that space. And now that the elevator will get you up there, it is an active part of the library program. Yes, Darren.
Move to the next slide to show the redesign of that, which shows that expansion of those archives and then the coalescing of the smaller offices into one larger office and a viewing space. And in this image, you can see the elevator in its new location that makes that connection.
and then the existing mechanical room remains untouched. So we have some massing studies just to show you how the extension could relate to the existing building. Now, we have the opportunity here where we have a few different architectural languages to work with, and we went through lengthy discussions with the team about what was the best way to touch this building, right? Are we sensitive to the 70s edition? Are we sensitive to the original building? Are we sensitive to the intermediary 1940s edition? So it was looking at this and saying, okay, how do we take this building and make it an understandable whole without having something that stands out as a look at me or something that is trying to be something very different, seemingly just to get attention for itself. So what we settled on was taking the familiar forms of the original building and wrapping that around the corner so it seems like the completion of an original thought. But instead of having the finishes of this be something that are trying to mimic exactly, because we would not be able to, having something where we update the finishes a little bit so that it's still familiar while also still expressing itself as new. So here we have the existing building. As we're looking at it, so that we understand what the context looked like, you can see how lush it is, and you can see how that stone really has a nice contrast to the lush landscaping around it. And so we are using that same stone, but not in a stacked stone in the way that that is shown. So here you can see this is standing on Laurel. The main entry is here at the far end of the slide. And as we come across, you can see we have the same pitch, the same roof form. So this is in conversation, as it were, with the main building. The proportions of this bay that pop out are very similar to the proportions of the entry piece, but it's set back and it's a little bit quieter in expression. We did not want people to be confused as to where you come into the building because we are not changing where the main entry is. So in this case, this is allowed to tie in, to have a conversation with and support, but not fight for the attention on this main facade. So it's a nice way of this to be able to bring that expression down and turn the corner and be supportive of the main building. Here we're on St. John's. The metro station is directly behind us in this view. So you can see, again, the continuation of that peaked roof and the expression of the stone. Now, this would be a smoother stone. It isn't the stacked stone that we're showing, but it is still a stone that has a horizontal banding. So again, it's speaking the same language, but in an updated way. And in these linkage pieces between, we're choosing the same stone, just in a quieter expression. And this would be that entry. Now, you may look at this and say, that entry looks like it's a little bit subdued compared to the rest of it, and you are right, and that is intentional. Because again, we don't want people to think that suddenly we changed the main entry of the building to be on St. John's. It's still on Laurel, and this is the secondary entry that is primarily for the use of this meeting room. And then you can see the discovery room here, which is the rest of that wing, which picks up some of that same language. It's in a scale that is appropriate to the building and has that same language. And so again, it feels very much like it could always have been there. And here, as we turn around, we're looking now, the Stupi cabin is immediately at your right shoulder in this view. So you're looking down into the garden, and you can begin to see some of the 1970s edition here. We can see that this language, again, picks up that same peaked roof, the same window expression, and where we have that smoother expression stone of those linkage pieces, we're making them visually quieter. It's a quieter stone pattern, and the windows are vast in this view, but they recede. They don't call attention to themselves in the same way that we are treating the window in the discovery room, for instance. So that with a direct correlation between this and the main original building. And there's a bit of a correlation between these linkage pieces in the 1970s, which is regular and recedes in view as it relates to the building. So we're taking the same approach that many of the other editions have done, but doing so in a way that's familiar and completes the thought around this corner. So another way to see this is a video fly through that we've done so that you can see the expansion as we move around the building. And here's the video.
Thank you so much, Scott and Darren. Really appreciate this insight into the design concept. So looping back to the priorities that were identified for the project at the start of our process included the elevator, which you saw was included, a larger youth services department, a large meeting room that's divisible into additional meeting spaces. We have an expanded and improved historical archive space and a maker space. The two items on this list that we assessed and determined would not be included in this expansion project are additional parking. Our parking assessment showed that sufficient parking was currently available in the library parking lot and in the overflow lot owned by the city on the corner of Laurel and St. John's, and that our current digital media lab was meeting current demand. So we feel like we have championed the 6 most important priorities, and we're really pleased with the results. I'm really pleased to introduce a member of our team, Assistant Director, Dr. Kari Rositas-Sheftel, who's going to speak about the service improvements you can expect as a result of these facility improvements. Kari?
Thank you so much, Heidi. At the Highland Park Public Library, we strive to be the community's trusted forum for enrichment and engagement by opening doors to information and imagination. Everyone is welcome at our library. Accessibility is one of the goals of the expansion. In compliance with the Americans with Disabilities Act and using the concept of inclusive design, on which we address the needs of the most excluded and marginalized users by making decisions that will benefit all, the library will be more accessible with the expansion by, number 1, we will now have a new ADA compliant elevator on which a wheelchair and a companion or a stroller and a companion will now fit in this elevator and will have access to all 3 floors of the library. We will also renovate 2 existing family-style unisex single-user restrooms in the youth services department to be fully ADA accessible, and we will add 2 fully ADA accessible toilet rooms with 5 fixtures near the new larger meeting room. And also, we're going to have in this new meeting room the possibility of allowing patrons with mobility disabilities to attend the programs. Currently, the auditorium only has 2 spaces for wheelchairs, and to access a lower level meeting room with a wheelchair, the hallway lift must be used. So this is about ADA accessibility in our library. But I would also want to talk a little bit more about in youth services. The expansion will allow for more space for young children to play, to read, and to learn. If you visit our discovery room lately, you may have noticed that it all takes 3 families using the space before it starts to feel like crowded. There's nowhere left to sit and read together, and the toys are all in use. The expanded youth services apartment will also have more spaces for seating. When you come to the library to find a place for your child to meet with their tutor, there will be more spaces available. Also, new to youth services, there will be private study rooms. And finally, it's a priority to purchase multiple copies of in-demand titles, which will reduce wait times for children to get their hands on highly anticipated titles. We will evaluate our shelving to make that possible. Back to you, Heidi.
Thank you so much, Kari. I'm going to cover the next bullet, historical preservation. Darren and Scott touched on this in terms of the expanded and improved archive. So our current archive does not have adequate temperature and humidity control for the preservation of the materials housed within. This is of vital importance that we improve the condition of the environment, and our work will do that. It's currently only accessible by stair, as Studio GC mentioned, and we want to make sure that the public has access to the materials about Highland Park's history. In addition, there's not enough space to support new physical collections that are under development and materials that are being added to existing collections. Some of those are currently being housed off-site. So we hope to improve not only how the materials are cared for and stored at the library, but in how members of our community access those materials. It gives me great pleasure to introduce you to another member of our team, Media Services Manager, Juan Reyes, and he's going to discuss the remaining bullets.
Thank you, Heidi. Yeah, we are super excited for these two priorities that were listed. One, our larger meeting room space. And I just want to touch base on a couple things that, besides having a larger meeting room, we're looking at it from the perspective of creating a vibrant space where a community can come together to experience a large array of events. It's more than just that programming space. Picture this, think about a state-of-the-art programming space in the library with seating for up to 175 individuals. Just the fact that we are adding extra seating to our programming, that would just elevate our programming to new heights. We are thinking of, presenting captivating music concerts to, hosting large, engaging outdoor events, art performances, all the things that the library has to offer to our patrons, to our community. They'll be able to immerse themselves into this type of programs like never before. Here are some examples of some of our large programs that we've had in which, our adult services department becomes that space. However, again, we're looking at limited seating and of course, a lot of rearrangement of furniture. The second point that we're also very excited for is our makerspace. 5 things that I'll talk about as far as makerspace. One is providing access to our patrons to the cutting edge technology and equipment that you can find in our makerspace, like 3D printers, laser cutters, CNC machines, type of equipment that will allow patrons to, bring their creative visions to life. Patrons will be able to learn new skills in a very supportive environment. Besides the equipment, patrons will be able to engage in workshops, classes, in ways that they can learn new skills. Like I mentioned before, 3D modeling, electronics, sewing machine, how to use an embroidery machine. Along with that, we also hope that patrons will be able to connect and collaborate. Patrons will be able to engage with fellow community members to foster connections, collaborations, with other people that also share the same interest. We are also looking to, for patrons to have a way to explore their creativity, and along the way, to get assistance from knowledgeable staff. Patrons will be able to experiment and innovate freely in this new makerspace, where they will find resources, guidance, and encouragement to keep exploring those ideas, work on creative projects. And finally, one of our goals and missions, and a mission that the library has, is to provide lifelong learning opportunities. And what better way to do this than providing, again, the space that encourages our community to become lifelong learners, be able to express their creativity, develop skills, and just explore. So we're super excited about these 2 priorities. And Heidi, back to you.
Thank you so much, Juan. As you can see, there's a lot going on in the library, and these spaces will enable us to do an even better job of bringing entertainment, technology, culture, information, and imagination to the Highland Park community. I'd like to invite all of our participants, please, to turn their video back on and unmute so that we can thank you all. Darren and Scott with Studio GC, thank you so much for your support with this process. And
Well,
team members.
Thank you for the opportunity to work with you on it. This has been so exciting for us, and we're eager to see what the next steps look like.
Thank you. Looking forward to the next steps for sure. And members of the library team, Kari and Juan, thank you so much. And you can visit the library's secondary website about the project, reimaginehppl.info. If you don't remember that link, go to the library's webpage, hplibrary.org, and you can link to it from there. We have a lot of background information available about the project, and we really hope that this is just part of the dialogue we will have, and we hope to hear more of your thoughts and questions over the course of the process. Thank you so much, everyone.